What's up, YouTube? I'm Mike, and today I'm back with some more late-breaking science news for you guys. One of the things that continues to be fucking annoying to me in this entire community, usually amongst the haters, but it's definitely a community-wide thing, where people are constantly talking about brain damage, cell damage. This drug causes some kind of toxicity. And the thing that I continue to not understand, given the wealth of scientific information about how the body works, is every time somebody sees any sign of damage being caused in the body or inflammation, they jump to the conclusion that this is somehow a negative and that it's something that needs to be prevented. One of the ways that this has comically been used is, until I hope no one's doing this. Hopefully this is not new information you're about to get. But a lot of people, like newbies who don't know any better, will go to the gym, and you know how in the beginning of your training, before you develop a lot of muscle memory and muscle maturity, you go to the gym, you do chest day, and the next day or the day after, you feel very sore, extremely sore in your chest, especially in the early going. If you haven't lifted in a long time, or you're brand new to bodybuilding, the muscle soreness that you can experience post-workout can be excruciating. I mean, it can be a lot. And so people would take non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen or something to try to numb the pain. And multiple studies have been done to show that you don't want to reduce the inflammation caused by a workout. That in fact the inflammation is necessary in your body's ability to build muscle. When the body is injured, which is what you do every time you go to the gym, you injure your body. You tear your muscles, and like these little micro tears and stretches and all of these things. You strain your body in such a way. It's kind of like breaking a bone. When you break a bone, the body heals it and it grows back faster, and it grows back stronger in the broken place. The same basic idea happens when you work out. The body sees that you're putting a stress on the muscle that it's not ready to handle, which is evidenced by the fact that you hit muscular failure. So when you lift to failure, you have pushed your body to a point that it can no longer keep up with the weight that it is trying to be crushed by. That's what the body thinks. This weight is going to hurt me. And so I need to adapt, I need to react, so that I'm not injured by this the next time I come into contact with it. So when you're laying on a bench press, the body doesn't fully understand that its muscular failure is not going to lead to injury, and so it gets stronger. Your body increases strength, and it builds more muscle fibers in response to this stimuli so that it can protect itself effectively. That's a very basic way of looking at this. And the inflammatory pathway is absolutely necessary in the body being able to do the work that it needs in order to heal itself. So studies have shown that when you take non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, you actually mute your body's ability to recover from injury. You're effectively wasting your workouts. So because I use a lot of trend on this channel, and because people who are basically mental midgets and they don't have the capacity to think for themselves like to parrot the bullshit that they hear from everyone else, like trenbolone is neurotoxic, or this drug is neurotoxic, this drug causes inflammation, this drug causes brain damage, neurotoxicity. They use this data as excuses or as proof that a drug is damaging to your body. So today I have a brand new study to share with all of you. I may actually go to the trouble of putting this one on the screen. If it's not on the screen when I start reading from it, then you need to click the link in the description if you choose to read along with me. The study is titled Brain Inflammation and DNA Damage: Unexpected Keys to Long-Term Memory. This is another video that the haters are going to love to listen to. So here we go. Reading along or following along. A surprising discovery by researchers at the Albert Einstein College of Medicine suggests that brain inflammation and DNA damage are essential components in the formation of long-term memories. Wow, DNA damage. So we're not even talking about drugs. We're not talking about anything we put into the body. We're talking pure and simply about you have an experience in life and your brain decides to turn this into a long-term memory, to file this away somewhere so that you can remember it 10, 20 years down the road. And what they're finding is that the mere process of creating this long-term memory causes brain damage and DNA damage. The study published in the Journal of Nature challenges the conventional view that inflammation in the brain is solely detrimental. So in the lay community, in the medical community, anytime a doctor saw brain damage or brain inflammation, they would think something was wrong. And this study is going to prove the opposite. Quote, inflammation of brain neurons is usually considered to be a bad thing, since it can lead to neurological problems such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, said study leader Jelena Radulovic, MD, PD, professor in the Dominic D. Purpura Department of Neuroscience, professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences. It's like some of these doctors' titles are like fucking when they introduce Khaleesi in a Game of Thrones. It's like Mother of Dragons, Freer of Slaves. It's like, shut the fuck up. Can we just get one name? We don't need all this fucking entourage of bullshit. But our findings suggest that inflammation in certain neurons in the brain's hippocampal region is essential for making long-lasting memories. To investigate memory formation, the researchers conducted their study using a controlled experimental setup with mice. I had somebody in the comments the other day going, why is it always they use mice? Why can't we use humans for this? Why is every test always done on mice instead of humans? It's like, bro, have you ever scienced like at all? Have you read a lot of studies that are done on animals? Or a lot of studies that are done to find out the effects of a particular drug, or for example the effects of a particular steroid. The only way they're able to fully determine the effects is to kill the animal and then autopsy its body. So that's one reason why we don't test on humans a lot. Also, it's a lot harder to control for variables. Humans eat all kinds of different food. They're required to self-report a lot of conditions that the study participants can't or the study operators can't possibly know. So when you have mice that have genetically similar brains, not identical, the study's going to talk about this later. But so we use animals for one because we've decided that it's ethical to test on them and then murder them and autopsy their bodies to see how much they grew. But then we also use them because we can raise them in controlled environments. We can know everything about their biological history. We can know exactly what diet they were on, exactly how much training they're getting, exactly how much sleep they're getting. And so this is important in doing science when you have to rule out a lot of other variables, which is nearly impossible in the human population. So I think the guy's question was almost like he was being suspicious. Like, well, why don't they just do this in humans to prove it once and for all? Well, that eventually that's what happens down the road is you get human trials. But thank God we don't start with humans right out the fucking gate, because the overwhelming majority of these studies go horribly wrong. So we are going to be using mice. They began by subjecting the mice to mild brief shocks, a method known as contextual fear conditioning. This approach is used to create an episodic memory, which is a type of memory associated with specific events. The shocks were designed to be strong enough to form a memory without causing significant harm to the animals. Following the memory-inducing shocks, and they have done this with humans before you jump to conclusions. I've seen a lot of really interesting studies where they put people into rooms with absolutely nothing else to do, except they put a red button in the room. And every time the human being pushes the red button, they get electrically shocked. And the crazy thing is that boredom is such a miserable thing for the human animal that the study participants would repeatedly push the button, getting shocked, rather than just sit there and stare at the wall. If you've never seen this, you could probably find it on YouTube. Fucking remarkable study. So they do shock human beings. Don't assume that this is a mice-only treatment. Following the memory-inducing shocks, researchers focused on the hippocampus, a critical region of the brain involved in memory processing. They used advanced genetic and molecular biology techniques to analyze the neurons within this region. One of the primary techniques used was bulk RNA sequencing, which allowed researchers to examine expression of thousands of genes simultaneously. They discovered that the toll-like receptor 9 inflammatory pathway was highly activated in these neurons. This pathway is typically involved in the immune response, detecting DNA fragments from pathogens. Now pay attention to that. What they found was that when they induced long-term memory creation in the animal, in the mouse, it activated a pathway inside the brain that usually activates in the presence of a pathogen. It's an autoimmune response that's designed to protect the body from an invading pathogen. That same toll-like receptor pathway was activated during the process of forming long-term memories. However, the researchers found that the TLR9 pathway was activated due to DNA damage in the hippocampal neurons rather than infection. So the body was actually doing the right thing. There was no infection in the body, but the pathway was activated because it did sense that DNA was being damaged. The results provide evidence that the activation of the TLR9 pathway in response to DNA damage is crucial for memory formation. This finding was unexpected, as this pathway is generally known for its role in immune responses rather than memory processes. The researchers found that when they blocked the TLR9 pathway, the mice could not form long-term memories, indicating its essential role in the process. This is going to get really good in a minute. So they had a hypothesis that activating the TLR9 pathway seemed to have something to do with forming long-term memories. So to confirm that this was not an anomaly, they blocked activation of the TLR9 pathway, and lo and behold, the mice could not form long-term memories. So case closed, this pathway is integral in the formation of long-term memories, and the trigger for this pathway is DNA damage. To delve deeper, the researchers examined the DNA damage and repair process within these neurons. They found that DNA fragments and other molecules resulting from the damage were released from the nucleus. This release triggered the activation of the TLR9 pathway, which then stimulated DNA repair mechanisms at the centrosomes, organelles usually involved in cell division. In neurons which do not divide, the centrosomes played a different role in aiding in organizing neurons into stable memory assemblies necessary for long-term memory formation. So here we have another example of how amazing the human body is. So you've got these organelles that are usually involved in a cell division process, and instead they're being redeployed to basically kind of organize neurons into stable memory assemblies. So their multifactorial purpose allows them to wear basically multiple hats, for lack of a better stupid term, inside the body. They have multiple functions. Cell division and the immune response have been highly conserved in animal life over millions of years, enabling life to continue while providing protection from foreign pathogens. I know that's going to fuck some of you 6,000-year-old Earth people up, but rest assured, animals have been here for millions of years. Radulovic explained, it seems likely that over the course of evolution, the hippocampal neurons have adapted this immune-based memory mechanism by combining the immune response's DNA-sensing TLR9 pathway with a DNA repair centrosome function to form memories without progressing to cell division. So the body found a way to take a neuron that does not divide and yet encode it with data that can be called upon later. So it's almost like it wrote it into the DNA. The DNA was damaged and the TLR9 pathway was activated and the repair function coded the memory. Just like when you go to the gym and you damage the muscle and you create an inflammatory response, and then the immune system comes along and repairs the muscle and makes it bigger and stronger in the process. Here we have a similar thing taking place inside the brain in the absence of no drugs, nothing chemicals going on. Purely having an experience in the world, in life, is enough to damage your DNA to the point that the body has to repair this damage, and the net result is memory formation. Another significant finding was that during the week-long inflammatory process, the memory encoding neurons became more resistant to new or similar stimuli. This resistance is important because it helps preserve the information already acquired, preventing these neurons from being distracted by new inputs. What does that sound like to you guys? That sounds to me like muscle memory. The same exact thing happens in our muscle mass. So if you go to the gym and you repeat the same workouts with the same weights, your body has a defense to that. And so it basically says, oh, no, I've seen this stimuli before. I'm not going to change in response to the stimuli. I have already handled this. So if you want to trick your muscles into continuously getting bigger and stronger, you have to constantly change up the stimuli. You have to add sets and reps, or you have to add like an eccentric movement, change the machines, unload, load, deload. There's all kinds of things you have to do to keep the body guessing, because it's really good at not wasting time reacting to something that it's already reacted to. So one of the, what we have here is basically the body forming a resistance so that it's not easy for these memories to be coded over. Which it says, this resistance ensures the stability of formed memories over time. This is noteworthy, said Radulovic, because we're constantly flooded by information, and the neurons that encode memories need to preserve that information they've already acquired and not be distracted by new inputs. The study also highlighted the potential risks. Now pay attention to this. The study also highlighted the potential risks of fully inhibiting the TLR9 pathway. The researchers observed that blocking this pathway not only prevented memory formation, but also led to profound genomic instability in the hippocampal neurons. Genomic instability is a condition characterized by high frequency of DNA damage and is associated with accelerated aging and various neurological disorders, including Alzheimer's disease. This finding suggests that while modulating the TLR9 pathway could have therapeutic potential, it must be done with caution to avoid adverse effects on genomic stability. Now, for the conspiracy theorists in my audience, can anybody guess what condition you might have acquired recently where the dumb fuck-ass morons in the medical community decided that it might be a good idea to shut down your TLR9 pathway? Can you think of anything that happened recently that they might have done this with? Let's find out. Genomic instability is considered a hallmark for accelerated aging, as well as cancer and psychiatric and neurodegenerative disorders such as Alzheimer's. Drugs that inhibit the TLR9 pathway have been proposed for relieving the symptoms of long COVID. See, guys, every single fucking time, the treatment has been worse than the fucking disease. These assholes were proposing the use of a drug that would basically make it impossible for you to form long-term memories, which is pretty fucking convenient, isn't it? We've got one of the ugliest conditions ever experienced by our country. We have been lied to on monumental levels at every turn. And after they lied to us and got us all infected by this fucking disease, then they proposed giving a drug that would shut down our ability to make long-term memories about what the fuck they just did to us. I mean, you cannot script this bullshit better than this. But caution needs to be shown because fully inhibiting the TLR9 pathway may pose significant health risks. So what they were proposing to do to help with COVID was to create a situation where they could block your ability to form long-term memories, cause Alzheimer's disease, and potentially cancer. I mean, these motherfuckers are absolutely out of control. The study goes on to explain why they use mice. Using animal models such as mice in scientific research offers significant benefits, including the ability to control experimental conditions tightly and the opportunity to conduct invasive procedures that would be unethical in humans. Like I said, you need to be able to control for variables, and you need to be able to, unfortunately, kill the animals and autopsy their bodies, which most human beings are not really going to sign up for. You're not going to get a good, huge cohort of otherwise healthy human beings who are like, yeah, fuck it, let's do a test, and you can kill me afterwards and autopsy my brain. Probably not going to happen. So they admit that while mice share a lot of similarities with humans, making them excellent models for studying complex biology processes like memory formation and brain function. However, there are notable pitfalls in the differences in brain complexity and cognitive abilities, and so it would be great to do this study on humans, and they probably will since it seems to be relatively non-invasive. Luckily, they don't have to autopsy the brain in order to get this data. They can just electrocute you and then look at your brainwave activity. So I think that's it. Future research should focus on validating these findings in humans to determine if similar mechanisms of DNA damage and inflammation are involved in the human memory formation. Additionally, exploring the molecular details of TLR9 pathway and different types of neurons could uncover more about its role in memory and neurodegenerative diseases. So there you have it. Yet again, some more scientific data coming to light to show that this fucking panicky thing that we have in our society where we look at blood work and we look at, there's all kinds of things that you could look at. You could pull a C-reactive protein test to find out what kind of systemic inflammation you have in your body. When you're looking at AST, ALT levels, what you're looking at is an inflammatory response in the liver. And more, we're finding out that just because we see inflammation, now, I'm not talking about chronic inflammation. Obviously, that's different. But just because we see, for example, that our muscles are inflamed and sore and swollen, this is not a sign of real lasting damage. This is proof positive that we had a productive workout and we've sufficiently stimulated our immune response to come along and do the work of building muscle so that we can have pecs and delts and biceps. This is a necessary evil in the process. It's why bodybuilding works. And what we're finding out is that this is true all over the body. Now we have an example in the brain where in response to environmental stimuli, you could actually cause damage, DNA damage to brain cells, which will engage the immune system to come along and try to repair it. And in the process of repairing them, you get the added benefit of having a long-term memory, which obviously is one of the single most important factors to our ability to exist on this planet, is that we have long-term memory, that we have chronological memory. We can remember being children. We can remember the lessons that we learned as children and then young adults. And then hopefully as we get older, we continue to learn from those experiences. Maybe one day we'll find out that this is the reason that some people seem to be profoundly fucking stupid. Maybe what this research is going to show us is that the reason some other human beings have really shitty memories is maybe they have some kind of genetic abnormality that prevents this pathway from firing, or they're taking certain drugs or whatever. Maybe we'll find out that the use of marijuana inhibits the TLR9 pathway, and that's why people who use marijuana seem to have shoddy fucking memories. Although I think with marijuana, is it the short term or the long term that's affected? I can't ever remember. I'm beginning to think that I'm one of the few people on earth that doesn't use any THC at all. And maybe that's why I have such a different outlook on life. I'm rapidly finding out that I seem to be in a minuscule majority, a minority of people who are not basically high every fucking day. But I digress. So the point of this video is just to bring you more scientific data showing that this idea that a particular drug or a particular behavior causes brain damage doesn't actually mean long-term irreparable damage. Just like breaking a bone is not a long-term problem, tearing your muscles is not a long-term problem, damaging brain cells is not a long-term problem. If the body does what it's supposed to do and comes along and repairs the damage, then you are left with all of the amazing, beautiful long-term memories. Hopefully they're beautiful. Obviously, a lot of them are terrible, but that's just the fact of life. So, as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.